I mean, there's only 12 notes, right? Lines and spaces. You figure it out. And once you don't have to be able to sight read. You just have to be able to like decode what these black dots and these flags are. And when you can decode that in your own pace and your own time, then you can learn anything.
Hi, and welcome to ForBassPlayersOnly.com. I'm John Liebman, and I help people who want to learn bass but haven't gotten very far with it yet, or at least not far enough. Great interview this week. Conrad Korsch, longtime player and musical director for Rod Stewart, and he's played with pretty much everybody else in the world. I'm going to get to that interview in just a minute. But first, if you've ever wanted to learn bass, you should know that right now there are thousands of people inside the For Bass Players Only community, men and women of all ages. And you know what they're doing? They're learning bass. They're having the time of their life playing music that they love. Come join them and experience that incredible transformation for yourself. As I always say, you're never too old to groove, so let's play bass. Conrad Korsch plays bass. He's a New York City based upright and electric bass player, musical director, and producer, originally from Philadelphia. Best known as Rod Stewart's longtime bassist and musical director, Conrad has also worked with countless stars in the music industry, everyone from Debbie Gibson, Cyndi Lauper, Andrea Bocelli, Carly Simon, to Elvis Costello, Carole King, Adam Levine, Christopher Cross, Liza Minnelli, Taylor Swift, Jennifer Hudson, Manhattan Transfer. The list just goes on and on. He's also played on dozens of Broadway pit orchestra shows, and he's been in the house band of the Tony Awards and was even an original cast member of the musical Swing from 1999. These days, Conrad gigs around New York with his new trio, the Conrad Korsch Electrio. We're not sure quite how to pronounce that, Electrio or Electrio. He's not even sure. When he's not working on shows like Saturday Night Live, Good Morning America, or Live with Kelly and Mark. Here's my interview with Conrad. Hi, Conrad.
Hey, John.
It's good to see you again.
Good to see you. I think this is the first time actually seeing you. The last time we were on the phone, right?
The last time, yeah, that was before I discovered this wonderful thing called Zoom, which is not always so wonderful.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, well, that was, we published that in 2021. And the world was not the happiest place to be at the time. And I wanted to do a video, but not just for the sake of it. I'm sure my audience would be very interested to know what you've been up to. So why don't we start there? 4 years, it seems like a long time, or it may seem like a short time. What are some highlights of what you're doing now, or what you've been doing since we last spoke?
Was that so? Was it still? It was still COVID-y back then, I guess,
It
right?
wasn't COVID-y. It was hardcore
Oh,
COVID.
it's full on. All right. Well, when COVID hit, I was doing a Broadway show, Beetlejuice, like the movie, and that ran for a year, and then COVID shut it down, and then Broadway was closed for like 2 years. At least my show was, and then that came back, and we did another almost year. Then that eventually ran its course. It's on tour now, and then I went right into another show called Dancing, which is a Fosse revival, which was great, but it only lasted a few months, you know. And as far as theater goes, I just been was like subbing around on other shows, filling in, and I do this thing called the Jimmy Awards every year, which is like the Tony Awards for high school musicals.
Oh,
Last year I did the House Soprano for the Drama Desk Awards. Um, and then I just started a new show that's like a full-time show that I'm doing. It's called Maybe Happy Ending, which is actually a really beautiful show. The title is
can only imagine what that
there's
show's
some
about.
comments, but it sneaks up on you when you see the show. It's gorgeous, and it's all upright bass. I'm in a remote room with a string quartet. It's a lot of arco. So it's a nice challenge, and it's like playing chamber music every night. It
Wow.
doesn't have those hit you over the head, big bombastic Broadway
Yeah.
words and big numbers. So it's really beautiful music, beautiful story, great group of people. There's only four actors in it.
Wow.
And Darian Chris is the star right now. He was in Glee, and killing of Versace TV series. Anyway, it's great, and it's one act, which is great. It's at 7 o'clock every night. I ride a city bike there from my apartment. It takes me 10 minutes to get there. I have two upright basses there, and I walk in 5 minutes before the downbeat, play the show, and I'm home by 9:15, or
I,
I'm
re-
at a late night jazz gig, you know, which
I
I don't play a
remember
lot
things
of.
like that when I was touring with Into the Woods, Cleo Lane and Stephen Sondheim. One of the places we played was Des Moines, Iowa. And
Mhm.
sometimes you have to take a bus from the hotel to the venue, and sometimes it's just across the street. Well, this time it was right across the street. We used to sit and watch Jeopardy. And then when Final Jeopardy came on, okay, we had to turn off the TV,
Yeah, you knew it was
go
time to go.
downstairs, walk across the street, three, four, and
Yeah, yeah, it's great. And then, with the upright bass, it's nice to be able to just leave it there.
yes.
And I could take off it's a union gig, so we're allowed to take off 50% of the time, which
Wow.
I don't take off that much because I love playing the show so much, but I have 4 or 5 substitutes that can cover me. I take off every Thursday to do a jazz quartet gig down in Tribeca, a place called the Roxy Hotel,
Cool.
which has another venue in the basement called the Django, and I've been leading a trio there, a late night, like sort of funky electric jazz trio that I do after I play 2 shows on Wednesday on Broadway, and then I go down there and play 2 sets until 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, you remind me of my Miami day, except the second show after the theater gig didn't start till like 1 or 1:30 in the morning
Ah,
at Copacabana.
yeah.
Hey, you remind me, I did an interview. Actually, I think it's running this week at the time of this recording. You must know Marco Panacea.
Yeah, he's one of my substitutes.
I had a feeling he might be because
Yeah, he's great. He subbed for me at Danson, and I think at Danson, and definitely at Beetlejuice too. And he lives right in Midtown. Yeah, he's great.
yeah,
In
great
fact, he
player.
also I just my so I have 3 uprights. 2 of them are at the show, and my Juzek is like my main bass now, and it was in the shop for like a few weeks. And Marco lent me one of his Ks. Very great.
Oh,
Yes, very great. He's a great player. And
yeah.
there's a couple guys that are in Midtown there, and which is handy in case I need someone last minute. Like I've been subbing at Saturday Night Live lately. On some Saturdays I'm on hold. So like there's a Saturday matinee, and if I get called in that morning because they do a rehearsal early in the morning, I might have to bail last minute. It's just good to have a couple guys that I could be like, get over there, and they live 10 blocks away.
I would imagine that's part of the culture or the zeitgeist of the musicians in New York. Because I remember in Miami, there were times at the beginning when people didn't know me and I was called as a sub at the last minute, and they'd say like, who are you? Oh, he should have called me. All right. Then he'd come up to me on the break and, hey, are you busy Saturday night?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's very practical, I mean,
But
it's
I guess everybody figures that you're going to send in a sub who's competent and who can get the job done, and it's just accepted. Am I right? I'm just guessing.
well, I mean, the thing is, when you have substitutes, it's because you want to be able to take off, right? So if I get called for some amazing gig somewhere and I really want to do it, I need to know that my subs are like play the show at least as good as me, hopefully better. That's what I want, because I want everybody to be like, oh, Conrad took off, but this guy's here, great, we're covered. Because when if the conductor is not happy with someone or some of the other players, like for me in this particular show, it's like I'm playing with a string quartet, so intonation is a big thing, phrasing, arco stuff. There's a lot of sort of it's not just a matter of like reading that note and playing that note on the right beat. There's a lot of other subtleties involved. And so yeah, I think some people like I try to make it as easy for my subs as I can. I'm very detailed with my notes, and I've subbed for some people that were not as helpful, and it's kind of like I don't know if they're trying to protect their own position in a way, but
That's
it only does them a disservice to have a sub.
exactly. It reflects poorly on them.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, the point is you want to be able to take off. Like if Eric Clapton is playing at the Garden tonight and his bass player breaks his arm and they say, get this guy Conrad. I want to be able to go, Marco, get over and do my show. And, and I want the conductor and everybody else to be like, okay, yeah, no problem. You got Marco, great. Go play the garden with Eric Clapton. You don't want them to say, oh, like Marco's the only guy available and we don't like how he plays, so you can't take off. We need you to be here.
You mentioned Sean Pelton quite a bit in the last interview.
Mm.
The Saturday Night Live stuff that you do, is that because of your relationship with him, or are you buddies with James Genius also? Or
Uh,
how did that come
well,
about?
I am buddies with James. But the way that I got in the door at Saturday Night Live is from Sean, who's the drummer in the band, and now he's also like the in-house contractor. So he does like payroll and paperwork. It's just like at pretty much any union gig, there's somebody that handles the paperwork stuff. But and he's been there for like for 35 years or something. I don't know how long he's been there. It's got to be something close to that. But yeah, I was playing in a band with Sean. I first met Sean doing like a $75 jazz gig somewhere in a restaurant in the 90s, and then when we'd start bumping into each other on like jingle sessions when there was a jingle business and other little things here and there, it's like we kept bumping into each other. But like the first gig we did, that jazz gig, we immediately hit it off musically. And then he actually pulled me into this band called Mojo Mancini, which was like John Leventhal, Grammy-winning producer, guitar player, Rick DePaffy, great sax player, Brian Mitchell, keyboard player. And anyway, it was this really cool band of all these like studio musicians, and a lot of people would come and see that. And we just started doing more and more and more things together. And then when an opportunity came for me to start filling in at SNL and put my name in, that was like 25 years ago, I think, almost. It's around
Well,
2000,
I would imagine you knew some of the other people in the Saturday Night Live band, but what was that like sitting into that hot seat? Electric bass is a hot seat unto itself, but when you go in,
Yeah.
were they hey, come on in, or like, who are you? And
No, they're welcoming. I think they like it, it's fun to have some new blood come in every now and then, shake things up. And that band, a lot of the positions in that band have changed over the years. Like I still fill in there, right? I just played the show in October with Ariana Grande. She was the host. I was playing in the house band and we backed her up on one of the monologues where the host sings on the monologues. But like half the band is different than when I started it 20 some years ago, but half the band is still the same. And so yeah, I think they like to mix things up. But it's a scary gig. I mean, it's like the ultimate pressure. Like it is live, 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 live. And like on Ariana's monologue, for example, we had a rehearsal that morning or that afternoon. We ran what they were going to do. And we did it once. The writers take it, they rewrite some lyrics, they change some chords, they edit some bars out, come back up. We got to do it one more time, rehearsal before the first show, because there's 2 shows every day. At first they do the show for an audience at like 8 p.m. And that show usually runs about 2 hours, a little more. And then they kick the whole audience out, trim the fat down to 90 minutes, bring a whole new audience in, and then we do it again live on TV.
so you get like a dress rehearsal.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then, they could see what skits land better than others, stuff like that. But we didn't like the next time I saw that music was when it was on my music stand to play the show, and they had made more edits. So like the only time we ever played that monologue music in the condition that it was played was when we did it live. We never actually got to rehearse it that way because more edits have been made. And then there's somebody with a microphone in the back of the room going, okay, hold here, wait for her. She'll cue you on this. Okay, horn, stop, you're in the wrong spot. Trumpets, like it's crazy. And so like you're listening to the singer, you're following cues, you're trying to play music and be musical and read music, and then you have somebody shouting in your ear at the same time too. It's
I've played shows
totally
like that,
command.
not quite that.
But I love it. I love that kind of pressure when like anything could just train wreck at any point. It's like it sets the boys apart from the men.
But generally speaking, is that an exception? Do you generally get to run through everything before you actually go
There's a
live?
lot more music than what you hear on TV because as people are coming in, the band plays a set for like a half hour of just playing tune like Tower Power kind of tunes. Lenny Pickett, he writes a lot of
Right.
charts.
Is that charts or are you just blind
It's
or
charts, and it's a lot of there's some originals. There's also original arrangements of classic blues and R&B and jazz tunes and whatever. And Lenny loves to write stuff in that Tower Power style, which is great. It's the sound of the band. But for the bass, it's like, a lot of like what is hip is like an E, right? So you have that open E, you can ride all those 16th notes. But Lenny writes stuff in flat keys, he's a horn player, so why not? So you're basically playing some of these songs at like the same pace of 16th notes, but there are no open strings, and you're jumping all up and down the neck on the bass. It's
is that a five string I see over your shoulder?
Yeah, this is my fretless actually.
Well, does that ever help when if you have to play an E flat or something like
Yeah, I on SNL I play five string. I do because James does, and I just figure like if I'm ever a substitute for someone, I approach it like I don't want anyone to know there's a sub there. You know what I mean? I'm not walking in like it's Conrad now, dig me, It's kind of like, okay, you guys have somebody that you love. There's a reason that person's there. I'm going to do my best impersonation of that person so that
you
you
guys
all.
don't exactly look alike.
Well, yeah, and we don't play exactly alike either, but respectfully, like I'm going to try to cop his thing as much as I can. And if he's playing a five string, I'm going to play a five string. If he's playing an old P bass, I'm going to go in and play a P bass. His though, he's got like a Fodera guy, so his thing is much more active sounding, and I do prefer passive instruments, so I use passive fives when I go in there, but there's an approach to the playing too. I mean that approach is kind of just like what I got from all those years subbing on Broadway, 30 years. But the point is, the greatest compliment that you can get as a substitute on Broadway is, oh, I didn't even know the regular guy wasn't here tonight. Like you're invisible. You've done best impersonation of that person you can do. And there are situations where you do want to walk in and be like, it's me, like dig my shit now, and there's a reason that you're there to do your thing, but that's just how I humbly approach that particular situation.
Yeah, no, I hear you loud and clear.
Mhm.
Hey, tell me about how do you pronounce this? Conrad Korsch Electrio?
Yeah, I didn't make that name up. Electrio, I guess. It was there had to be a name for the group, and the guy that books the room, John Regan, he's a piano player, and he's the guy I play with every Thursday at the Roxy. It's a quartet, John on piano, Craig Handy on sax, monster, and my buddy Cook Broadnax on drums, fellow Phillyite. And John books that room and Django and another room, and he asked me to put an electric trio together for that. And he's like, I need bios, I need a title, and I just like snoozed on it, and so he came up with that name. And
Oh,
there it is.
the accent is on trio. It's okay, not
I don't know.
Electrio, I guess, right?
I guess, I don't know. I never asked, but I play this bass on it because it's normally the Django is like a jazz speakeasy, but on Wednesday nights when I play there, they're trying to do more of an like a funky new jazz soul electric kind of a thing. And I was like, I didn't want to just walk in there like with a Fender, like, so I thought, let me do something different. Not a lot of guys are playing fretless five-string bass around town or maybe anywhere. So I just thought that's like one more little angle to set me apart, aesthetically, sonically.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. Things go in and out of fashion too, slap bass. Some people are like, I hate slap bass. I would never slap it, and it's like 10 years from now, they're going to be like copping all Marcus Miller's licks.
Yeah. Well, I got my five strings in the 80s, and I'm the first to admit I was guilty as anyone. I'd be playing a wedding or something. I'd be like, "Blah, blah, blah, blah," down where I where I
Yeah,
shouldn't
right.
be
Yeah,
because
you gotta explore. You gotta explore. I had six strings in college, stuff like it. And then I came up here, I had like a six string fretted and a six string fretless. And it was a graphite neck six string. It was like I was it was just like sacrilege, coming to New York with that kind of stuff. Cause I pull it out, like, as soon as I pulled it out of the case, like I was already playing too many notes in people's mind. You know what I mean? Like, it was like New York was kind of like a Fender, old jazz bass kind of a thing at the time. This is like mid 90s. And then I got my hands on my 72 jazz bass and I literally never played my 6 string again. And then about 5 or 6 years later, I got my 66 P bass. I started playing that around before P basses came back into fashion. Thank God, because I got a good deal on it. Now I wouldn't be able to. But as a studio musician, like I have to be prepared to do anything. So fretless, 5 string, slap bass, active electronics, passive electronics, play the pick, read, whatever.
So it sounds like you're busy enough in town that you've got enough going on. Do you ever get a chance to go out on the road or even a desire to go out on tour?
Um, yeah, I mean, I toured for almost 16 years with Rod Stewart, right? And that was it was like first class kind of, business class flights, nice hotels. I had a tech. We had, good salary, and we traveled with our own catering company and all. It was pretty cushy. So it would be kind of hard to top that. There are a handful of gigs out there that could top it or match it, and that do, and I would consider those. Um, or if it was something that even paid like crappy, but like I loved the music. My some of my first touring was playing with a klezmer band,
Really?
David Krakauer, monster clarinetist, and we toured around Europe. We did 2 tours, like 3 weeks at a time. I played that bass actually, the fretless. It weighs nothing. It's like hollow, semi-hollow body. So, but
That's
carrying my
fun,
own
isn't it?
bass and carrying a suitcase, and we were doing it by train. We were like running to make train connections, and we get off the train, go right to a sound check, then eat dinner backstage, play a concert, sleep in a hotel like for a few hours, get up and do it again. Like, but it was really cool, and in a way, like that was a better experience in some ways than the Rod thing, because like Rod, we were so isolated. We're on big tour buses. You pull down the ramp into an arena, it's concrete. You get out, every arena looks like kind of the same. We were so self-contained with the catering and everything else that you didn't get to meet that many other people. You didn't really get to press the flesh with the audience. Where like when I was doing theaters and clubs doing the klezmer thing, there was usually like some kind of a reception afterwards where you would meet people that were like sponsors and
Yeah.
promoters and things like that. It was a cool experience, but I don't know. If the right thing came along, or if you caught me in the right mood, if you called me in January and said, "Hey, you want to go to like South America for 2 months, get out of New York in the snow and the cold," I'd probably be like, "Yeah, let's go."
Depends what part of South America, I guess, because they get some cold down there too.
Yeah, or whatever. Australia, we used to do Australia around that time of year because it was summer over there.
Yeah.
The
I,
last the road
what
thing I did was like a weekend with Manhattan Transfer, and now they're kind of done. They did their 50-year anniversary and pretty much wrapped it up. I think they might every once in a while do some private events, but those kinds of things were like weekends. Pop out for a weekend,
yeah.
week, pop back. So I mean, the Rod thing, like I would disappear for like 4 or 5 months at a time.
Yeah, no, the weekend thing is very appealing to me. I'd love to go back to doing some, the kids are all grown. It's just my wife and me now. And, I could,
Yeah, that was how when I was with Roseanne Cash, she had a young son at the time, and so it was more weekend warrior-ish, with the odd like week-long thing here.
who did I just interview? Oh, Matt Mangano plays with Zach Brown Band.
Mm.
And he says, usually they'll go out like on a Thursday, come back Sunday, or, so he's got the rest of the time at home.
Yeah, that's kind of a Nashville approach, isn't it? Right? I
Uh,
think that, like my buddy was playing guitar with Faith Hill and Tim McGraw, and they would do like a Vegas thing on weekends, and then they fly on because they had a family and stuff. If you can do whatever you want at a certain level, if you're, I mean, not me as a side person, but if the artist decides that they just want to do weekends, then you're at the mercy of their schedule.
Didn't the Grateful Dead have a thing with just only playing on Friday nights? I seem to remember
Really? I
something
don't
like that,
know.
like back in the 80s or something. I don't know.
Well, look how that worked out for them. I mean, they had no fans, you
Yeah, right. Hey, I
know.
want to go back to something that you touched on a few minutes ago. Is there an expected sound for a bass player in New York now? You mentioned you have to be facile on all these active, passive pick, upright, electric. But I mean, generally speaking, is there an expected sound like you mentioned the P bass or you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, personally, I prefer to be as diverse as possible. That's for my own thing. I just love that. And I don't get bored. And that makes me an easy hire for session that involves a lot of stuff too. You know what I mean? Knowing if somebody knows that you can cover a lot of ground. But there are people that are more like specialists that might only get called to do a certain thing, or if it's like we need this one single authentic thing, and this guy he doesn't do that, he doesn't do that, but we only need this thing, and this guy's going to kill that. So there's an element to that, and then there's like trendy things like it seems like these days. All right, so when I came here, it was like jazz bass, Sadowski preamp, Marcus Miller, that kind of thing, the end of the sort of, that SWR scooped kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And now it seems like now it's going the complete opposite. It's like the cheapest, like dumbest, short scale, flat wound, passive bass that you can find in a pawn shop. Like the crappiest, the crappier your instrument is, the cooler you are. Like if you're playing in a band, playing gigs with your band around town. You know what I mean? That's just sort of seems to be the style. But that's not always practical for a session musician.
That's
But I have things like that I told you last time about this Conrad bass,
yeah.
this 60s thing. I could pull it out, say it's like a short scale, thumpy, flat wounds thing. And I also have my 60s P bass. I have this Dan Electro, which is also hollow body reissue that has flats on it. That's kind of thumpy too. But that other thing, it's just this block of wood. It's like, but if you want something like that, that's the way to get it. And I have producers choose that all the time over my P bass and other things.
Well, how many bases would you take to a typical session if there was
Yeah,
such a thing?
that's a good question, especially in New York.
Yeah.
We're getting around on the subway or on a bike or jumping in a cab or, or an Uber or something that, you know, that gets, there's my Uber right now. You hear the car? Um, that stuff gets expensive and you only have two hands. And if you live on the 10th or ninth floor, like I do, you're not going to make like a whole bunch of trips with a bunch of gear, right?
Are
So,
cartage companies a thing of the past these days?
Um, I would say they are not as prominent as they were before because, like clubs, for example, have a lot of backline now, where before everybody had to bring their own amps and their own drum sets and stuff, and it's just most clubs have their own backline, and there are a couple companies in town here that have the instrument and backline rentals pretty much buttoned up for if you're doing like a TV show or if you're doing a concert somewhere or things like that. But like the days of like I have my cartage guy, hey, I need my 410 cabinet and my SVT head at this place at this like that's
I
not
was thinking more of the instruments rather than the amps and stuff.
like, oh, like, I mean, if I'm going to do a session at the power station, I'm bringing my bass, especially my upright, I'm bringing my bass, my bow. So to answer your question, I would, if didn't know for sure what it was, I would bring a 5-string bass electric because I don't know if they've written notes for 5-string or not. I want to be able to cover it. If they haven't, I can still play the top 4 strings. Um, and I would have usually what's needed beforehand. They might say, oh, it's upright, bring your bow, or which if it's upright, I'm gonna bring my bow anyway, just in case. You never even know if they didn't write anything for it. They might just say, oh, that last note, can you just give us bow as a whole note at the end? But there have been things like I did this, there was a TV show called Schmigadoon. And I did season two. It was like a musical show, Apple TV, right?
Yeah.
And I think James did
Oh,
actually season one, and I did season
we
two.
saw that. One
Yeah,
of the guys from Key and Peele is he in there, and somebody from Saturday Night Live.
probably. I think there was some SNL.
Cecily Strong, that was her name. Was is that the show?
I haven't actually seen it.
Oh,
I'd love to. It's on my list, my binge list, But uh there were two seasons, I know that. I think James did the first season and I did the second season. And um they were like, there's upright bass and arco, so they would tell me that. And then they sent me charts in advance for that PDFs, like through a Dropbox. They're like, okay, we're gonna do these, check this stuff out. Because some of them are like 12 pages long, big, so they're like big Broadway type production numbers. And then some I could see was written for the five string, so it was like a no-brainer. I'm gonna bring my five string. But then there was like some stuff where they were like, we want like a Motown vibe or like a 60s R&B or that kind of thing. And then they're like, can you bring something that's
the
like,
P bass with the flats.
well, my P bass has round wounds on it.
Okay.
I love the sound of a P bass with round wound strings. I think it sounds great. And since I have the Dano, which is semi-hollow, and that has flats, and I have that Conrad bass, which is short scale and has flats and is solid, those tick that box already. And I couldn't never make those basses sound like a P bass with round wounds with a pick, for example. So I brought back the Conrad bass also. So I have a double bass case where I can fit two electric
Yeah.
basses in there, put that on like a backpack. And then I have a wheel for my uprights. And so I put the upright in front of me and I have the backpack with two electrics on it. And I'll walk to Union Square and jump on the subway. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do it all the time. Keeps me
Wow.
fit. I mean, it's a hustle. And, if it's rush hour, then it's a nightmare because sometimes the trains are so packed, you can't fit enough people in there, period. They're already packed in like sardines. People. And
You
if
ever
you
bump
try to
into
do
Ron
that,
Carter with his upright on the subway?
I haven't bumped into him on the subway, but I bumped into him. Like I used to play every Friday at the Birdland Jazz Club.
Yeah.
And there was a big band called the Birdland Big Band. Tommy Igo was the band leader, son of Sonny Igo,
Ah.
played with Woody Herman. And so we would play like the like 5 to 7 slot every Friday, and then whoever was headlining that night would play after us. And a lot of times Ron would have his group in there, so I get to hang out and chat with him.
Uh, uh, Jimmy Cobb played there, and I think Harold Land. This was like 1990, something like that.
Yeah, it's moved locations a few times. It's been this now it's in Times Square. It's been there for
Oh,
probably 20 years, 25 years. And it used to be up on 105th Street and Broadway around there for a while. And the original one, I think the original one was Broadway and like 52nd Street, which
yeah,
was
52nd
like
Street was.
Flash Dancers Strip Club or something.
Yeah. I haven't been to New York in a while, but you know what I really miss is 48th Street. That was always the first place we went.
Can't believe it.
There's no Sam Ash, there's no Manny's, there's no Rudy. Is
Yeah.
Rudy still there?
Rudy's moved downtown.
Okay.
I think
That's
that's
where I got my five strings, my Tobias's.
I got this fretless there.
Yeah. There's a
Yeah,
guy named
they used to
Dean
come
who used
to
to work
twice.
there.
Who?
Dean was the guy's
Dean, my man Dean, and
name.
also Rob. Rob was great too. Uh, yeah, those. I think they're still downtown. I haven't bought like a bass in a long time. Don't let me.
I have to get
Too
back
many of
to
those.
Hey, I want to switch gears and talk about this is a bass instruction site for bassplayers.only.com. And I've got people right now from every state in the US and I don't know, I think 50, 60 countries worldwide, maybe more than that by now, coming to For Bass Players Only every day to learn bass in our academy. And most of the people are in their 50s, 60s, 70s. I've got people in their 80s, men and women, not looking to make a career in music. They just finally want to do something for themselves. They want to play music that they've always loved. And, they want to get together with their friends, play some classic rock riffs or some blues shuffles or maybe some funk R&B or, fun stuff. And
Mm.
a lot of times when people get into their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, things like arthritis, tendonitis, bursitis, maybe recovering from surgery. And I'm just telling you all this to give you a general context of some of the people that you were talking about short scale basses. Some of them find that helps with the hands. But I want to talk about the music, though, and I want to ask you what advice you could impart to somebody like that who wants to learn to play the bass. I remember when I was just learning, when I was like 17, my goals were all wrong. It was like copying Stanley Clark licks and trying to do Jocko stuff and
Wrong with that?
transcribing Jeff Berlin solos and just trying to play fast. It wasn't
All
about
right.
locking in with the drummer and setting the foundation for the band and making the music feel good, the stuff that I try to instill in them now. But what do you think they should be thinking about? What kind of approach do you think they should take?
Uh, it depends on their own goals, you know? I mean, if they, like you gave the example, if they just want to jam with their friends. Um, Obviously, like picking things out off of recordings, playing along with the recordings. I mean, if you play along with a Led Zeppelin recording, you're getting to play with John Bonham on drums. It's pretty hard to beat, you know? Play along with some James Brown stuff and play with Clyde Stubblefield. But um, so ear training, picking things out, great. But you know, I'm always a big proponent of actually like educating yourself in real life, like learn to read music. You know, people pick up, you talk about retirees, stuff, you pick up any skills. Some people learn, I don't know, they start playing pickleball or they learn to sew or knit or like, you know, I don't know, hobbies that people put off their whole lives, or they get really into something woodworking, you know, and then they subscribe to a woodworking magazine and they buy all the tools and then they practice and they, you know, or anything like cooking, take cooking classes, you know, like you you can just like get a bunch of food and ingredients and try to start throwing stuff together the best you can, or you can actually like go take a class or go study. I think that learning to read music is so valuable because first of all, it's just good for your brain, keep your brain active, right? And once you I mean, there's only 12 notes, right? Lines and spaces. You figure it out. And once you don't have to be able to sight read. You just have to be able to like decode what these black dots and these flags are. And when you can decode that in your own pace in your own time, then you can learn anything because so many things are already written out. Like somebody already has done the job of transcribing Led Zeppelin 4 album,
Yeah.
for example. Note for note, let's say. I mean, I'm making this up, but probably someone has, right?
Or the Charlie Parker Omnibook.
Omnibook, yeah, that's what I use that with my students. Exact, all that kind of stuff. Or you have Bach and you have Brahms, you know, all kinds of things. You can work through stuff from other instruments too. But like if once you figure out, you know, even if it's like, okay, that space, right, and that means that's this note here. Okay, I see how that is now. The more you do it, the faster you'll get it. Like I can sight read a lot of stuff that you put in front of me. I mean, I might make a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes here and there, but like there was a time in my life where I didn't know what one single note of music meant, just like anyone, right? And now I get paid handsomely to go in and sight read, right? And it just makes you a better musician all around, and it's going to help to inform your everything you do. Even if all you want to do is play the blues in your garage, like that's my thing. I feel like there's no shortcuts, you know. Um, and but again, you have your ear training thing too. Everyone like I don't really have to suggest that because anybody who's playing music and learning songs in a band, in a cover band, is going to do that already anyway, right? They're going to get the recording and they'll learn it best they can.
Yes.
But if you can read music and there's already a transcription out there, it'll save you some time in ear training, or you can still pick it out by ear and double check the transcription, see if you got it right. That said, I've seen transcriptions that are wrong too.
Oh yeah.
So
I've been shedding Grapevine, James Jamerson's line, the Gladys Knight version, and
yeah,
there's a B flat at the beginning, and damn if it's not a B natural. I mean, I know
yeah,
so it's
yeah.
standing in the shadows of Motown. Anthony Jackson was very involved in that, so I don't know. Maybe it's between. Maybe he played a B flat, and he just kind of sounds like a B natural. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Sometimes the ear wants to hear it a different way too, or your
Yeah, I want to hear a B flat.
yeah, I mean, when you know your music theory and all that, and like you're kind of like, oh, that has to be B flat if we're in C minor, but like doesn't matter. What's the note? But sometimes your brain wants to fill things in.
Yeah. It's actually in C major, and there's a B flat, but that's another kettle of fish. It's just a dominant chord. But hey, I love everything you said. My only caution is when you say there's only 12 notes, that's like saying there's only four strings on the bass.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm oversimplifying it, but I'm just trying to make it less intimidating
I know.
because people are like, you've learned to read the English language and put sentences together and grammar. Like there's a lot less to figuring out what music notes are with stabs than there is to learning an entire language. And it is another language, but it doesn't have to be as intimidating as people think, And then
I
like
agree.
all kinds of cop outs. People, oh, if you read or if you study too much, it takes away from your soul playing and this and that's like, come on, give me a break.
No, that's on you.
Yeah.
Hey, you talked a lot about what's going on now. What about the future? Is there anything that you've either got in the works that's percolating or something that you've always wanted to do, but you just haven't gotten around to it yet?
I've been doing more composing, which is great. I did a project a couple years ago. There was, Black Beauty, the book or the
Yeah.
play. Uh,
Mhm.
the choreographer that I have worked with did a whole ballet to Black Beauty and hired me to compose and produce all of the music for it. So
Oh,
every note I wrote and played on various instruments and recorded and mixed. And then it premiered in London at the Sadler Wells Theater, and I flew out there to go see that.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was very like creatively satisfying on so many levels. It got great reviews. Well, so I was really flattered by that. And that same choreographer just hired me to do a 15-minute short film. Same thing. I'm going to compose all the music, record everything here. So that's going to be, 15 minutes of original music to compose it and then produce it, playing every instrument, mix, all the timings, and it's quite an undertaking.
What kind of guidance do you get as far as the instrumentation? Is it totally up to you, or do they have?
They have like a temp track for just the first couple minutes of something that featured like a nylon string acoustic guitar, and it was shot in Puerto Rico, it's by the beach in some cases, and so they liked that sound of it, and even I think more Spanish when I think, or like Argentinian, but still, they're liking that sound for the beginning of it. So I'm definitely gonna start out with that type of a sound and like a finger picking kind of a thing. And then there's a club scene later where there's gonna be music in the background. So it's like incidental music, but I'll compose that too. It's like as if there's a DJ playing or a band playing. So that I'll probably do like a salsa kind of approach.
Love it, love it,
And
love
then
it.
there's some other like very intense scenes with yeah, I don't want to give away the plot, but highly emotional scenes so that can go wherever. And I watched the movie and then I had ideas just from seeing it once. I wrote down like my initial impressions and I didn't want to think too hard about it. I was like, what am I feeling at first when I see this? I wrote those down, ran those past the choreographer, and like we were very much on the same page. She had some ideas too, but then she hadn't thought of it the way that I thought of it. In some cases, she was like, I love that. Like there's a visual thing, and she was like, can you do something with that whenever we see that thing, or the first time we see that thing, like to give it like a musical, and
A
then
leitmotif.
like a motif, and then but in this
Oh, a
particular
light
oh
motif.
light motif.
Yes.
So and in it, but in this particular thing, it was I already knew that it was going to be in a scene that was having a lot of busy music already, and so I had this idea. How about for that instant, instead of a musical cue, we have silence? And she was like, she kind of had that, like, oh, yes, I love that idea. Because the point is, we want to draw attention to this, you know.
Does John Cage share in the composing credits on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always trying to take a little different angle on
Yeah, I
it.
like that.
But so yeah, I'm excited about that because it's going to be a big creative outlet. And then I'm working, I wrote last summer, I wrote some songs with a great jazz singer in London. Her name is Jo Harrop. And we want to continue with that. She's trying to get back here this summer. And then when we have enough songs, probably I will produce a record for her. And I'll play on that, but maybe hire a band also. And I just did the Broadway cruise, which is exactly what it sounds like, a bunch of Broadway stars on cruise, Broadway fans. And I met a lot of people on that. There was one singer in particular that I was really impressed with, that I was speaking to her about possibility of doing a record, because I don't think she really has original music, but the voice is amazing. She's becoming a big star on Broadway now, so there's an audience for it. So that could be a collaboration. I'm not mentioning the name because it's not inked in yet,
Well, you opened it up for a follow-up interview.
There you go.
That's good. Anything else we haven't covered? We talked a lot about your gear, and is there anything we left out? It seems to me I saw you on are you a Fishman pickups artist or Fishman?
Oh, am I on there? Yeah, I am, and they have given me some stuff, and so yes, I am a Fishman artist. I didn't know if I didn't know I was on their website. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm. But yeah, I use the full circle pickup
Oh yeah,
on
very
my
popular.
upright. I like that very much. And then I have a couple of the little preampy things, the Platinum Pro. It has a tuner built in and a mute switch and XLR out stuff, but comes in handy. I don't need it often, but when you need something like that, sure comes in handy, especially if I'm doubling again with like not trying to carry too many different things, like the backpack and the thing. So I'll bring like an AB, just like a Boss line selector pedal, and
Mhm.
I'll send one end out through the Fishman so that I can change the EQ for the upright, and then have the other one go out, and they might end up going to the same amp, which of course the amp is only going to have one EQ on it. So the way to like bridge that is to like use the Fishman to tweak the upright EQ, so that when I have the EQ set for my electric bass, they're not like, it's never going to be exactly the same, right?
What kind of amp do you use when you're in someplace that doesn't have a back line?
Well, I've been with Ampeg for years. Can you see this? I don't know what you can see. Do you see that mirror behind me?
Oh, I
The,
thought that was a window. Yeah, okay.
yeah, it's a
I mean, I thought
reflection.
that was
The
an
windows are
opening.
actually there, and that's a mirror reflect.
Uh,
And right here is a little SVT.
I thought that was an opening to another room. Okay,
This
gotcha.
right, this right here is a little SVT.
Okay.
Super cool. It's like it weighs nothing. It's solid state. But yeah, I mean, I'm very loyal. Like I've been with Ampeg for years, and they were a little late to the lightweight game, in my opinion. Yeah. And I tell them that, but now they're there. I have a combo, like a little rocket bass, 100-watt thing that's great. And they're starting to do lightweight, smaller heads too. But I mean, whenever I do like, if I do TV, and if I have a choice, I just say give me an SVT classic tube head and a 410 cabinet, because I don't have to carry it. You know? But
Great stuff, great timeless stuff forever, and great people too. You must deal with Dino over there.
Dino's the man. Yeah, I love him. And in fact, he set me up with, now that they're under Yamaha.
Yeah.
Yamaha has guitars also, and they have Cordoba nylon string guitars. Tying it back to this composition project that I'm doing, I'm talking to them about setting me up with a nylon string that will be like the featured instrument for this film. So yeah, it's nice. It's just good. It's a very family kind of a thing. Oh, that said, I should mention that I also have a Mark bass, little micro Mark 801. I don't know if you know what that is, like a little 8-inch speaker. Just has a volume and one tone knob. It's pretty quiet, but for something where you're like playing in the corner of some restaurant or something, you just need a little bit of a boost so that you're not using
Not
fingers.
for the big arena gigs.
Yeah, yeah, but that thing's super handy. It's tiny, it's lightweight. Yeah, that's but my favorite amp in the world is the one that I don't have to carry. You just can't beat that.
I love it. Hey, I
Yeah.
have one more question for you, Conrad. If you can imagine, what would you be if you were not a bass player? Something outside of music.
You asked me that last time. I think I said doctor because I think it'd just be amazing to be able to fix yourself and diagnose yourself. Plus, healthcare is such a mess in New York. But well, I can't say that again. And I don't think I would put the time in to be a doctor. But if you ask my mom or my ex-girlfriend, they would say a lawyer because of my arguing skills. Maybe I'm a Taurus too, stubborn. So I guess this time I'll have to go with lawyer because it's been
Okay.
but what I wouldn't want to be a lawyer.
No, I saw Tom Hanks on TV one time. What was that show? Inside the Actor's Studio.
Mhm.
And he asked all the standard questions. What was his name? James Lipton. He says, "What job would you not want to have?" And Tom Hanks says, "A lawyer." He says, "How come?" He says, "Because when you're a lawyer, you do homework for a living."
Yeah, yeah. Well, you could say the same about music. I mean, but we
It's
love
not the
music and
same.
it's creative. But some lawyers, I mean, just devil's advocate, like a lawyer, there's a creative process, right? You're like, there are probably times criminal defense lawyers in the back of their mind are like, this dude is guilty. But my job is to prove that he's not. And they have to get creative. And uh, then you get into all your inner turmoil and conflicts. But there's a creativity to it, depending on what type of law you're doing, right? If you're just doing I don't know, copyright infringement or something, it's probably you're just like, okay, this statute says this doesn't. But I've always said about music that like, we don't just punch the clock. Like I punch the clock at my show, I show up, I play my show from 8 or 7 to 9, whatever. But then I come home and I'm like, oh, my elect trio is playing Wednesday, and I'm going to write a new arrangement so that we don't do all the same stuff that we did the last time. Or we're going to do this tune that has that riff that I don't quite have it under my fingers, and like I could probably get by on the gig, but I'm going to practice it one more time anyway. Or I'm subbing at SNL this weekend, and there's those couple tunes that are just all over the bass. Like I know the notes right now, but like I'm hanging on for dear life. But if I play it a few more times between now and Saturday, I'll have it under my fingers more and I'll be that much more comfortable. So when the camera's on and the adrenaline is going and the nerves are high, like it's not just like you're done. You don't just, like, okay, I'm done. I practiced this song. There, it's done. You can always improve, you know.
Absolutely. And as far as the creativity goes, you remind me when I was in undergrad and in graduate school, I majored in music and business administration.
Hmm.
People used to say, well, that's a strange combination. And I never understood what was strange about that.
Yeah.
I remember down in Miami, I was in the graduate school of management, and I'm doing my homework, and I had to do like, accounting and statistics and finance and write a tune for jazz comp.
Yeah.
Such a wonderful release and such a chance to be creative, and it kind of rounded it all out for me.
Yeah, well, and we're all running our own business, whether you're incorporated or not or anything, it doesn't matter. It's like you are your own corporation. Just you're the whole business. You know, you're the CEO, you're the artist, you're the booking agent, you're the promoter.
The HMFIC.
What's that?
The head
Oh,
MF.
in charge, yes. Yes.
All right. I think we better cut it off here before we go down a dangerous path.
Yeah,
But
right.
it's so great catching up with you, Conrad. Thanks
Nice
so
to see
much.
you.
Great to hear your story, and I'm serious about that follow-up interview. As long as there's interesting stuff to talk about, and with you, there always is. So
Thank you.
let's make a point of getting together again. And I am well overdue for a trip to New York. I'll have to get back there. And on the other coast, if you ever get out to the NAM show, I don't know if you're into that or not, but I've been
Been
going.
a while, yeah. It's been about 20 years since I've been out there.
Yeah, it's
Or
not as
been
big
into
as
now.
it used to be. Well, thanks so much, my friend. You take care. Much luck and continued success to you, and keep us posted on what you've got going on, because it's stuff.
Thanks for thinking of me and reaching out.
All right, my friend.
I
Thanks
asked
so
Marco
much.
when I could see his. I'm going to ask him about his interview now. I need to see that.
Okay, it's up right now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Upright, no pun intended.
All
Okay.
right, my friend. You take care.
You too.
Thanks again. Interesting guy. He's got so much to say. He's done so much cool stuff. And as you heard, he's got a lot more in the works that I'm sure is going to be awesome as well. Thank you, Conrad. And if you've ever wanted to learn bass, you should know that right now there are thousands of people inside the For Bass Players Only community, men and women of all ages. And you know what they're doing? They're learning bass. They're having the time of their life playing music that they love. Come join them and experience that incredible transformation for yourself. As I always say, you're never too old to groove. I will see you right back here next week, same time, same place, with another bass player interview here at ForBassPlayersOnly.com. In the meantime, I'm John Liebman. Let's play bass.